Classic Jess. Hello, welcome back to Lady Lovestead Reads. My name is Jessica, and today I'm sharing with you all the books that I read in March. I just watched a ridiculous Instagram reel, and the audio of it is just like, what the heck is that even? Like, it's like, do you know the Muffin Man? Have you seen it? It's so ridiculous. Let's do some March stats. So, in March, I've got my little notebook here, so I'm looking down at it. I read 8 books. All of them came from the library, with the exception of 1 book from Kindle Unlimited. So, basically in March, I did terrible at reading from my own bookshelf. I am so uncomfortable. I need to find a new position. Time out 20 seconds. Okay, that feels better. Let's just try this again. So yeah, 8 books in March. All of them except 1 came from Kindle Unlimited. For ratings, I had 6 4 stars, 1 5 star, and 1 DNF. I read 7 adult books and 1 young adult book. For genres, there were 2 nonfiction, 1 sci-fi, 2 mystery thriller, 1 romance, and 2 lit fic. The oldest book I read was published in 2001, and the newest was published in 2023. I read 2 BIPOC authors for a rate of 25% in March. But for the year 2023, that averages out to being 46% of my reads from BIPOC authors for the year. My favorite books were Spare by Prince Harry and Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. At the beginning of the month, I didn't total it. What is up with this? March is clunky. Okay, but I ended up with, also didn't total it here. Give me a second. Okay, I'm back. So I started March with a total of 788 books on my bookshelf, including physical books and ebooks. I hauled 7 books, so I ended up with 795 books on my bookshelf. I did not read any from my shelves, so my rate of books read to unread is 28%, and I'm trying to get to at least 38% by the end of the year, because 28% has been where I've been hanging out since January. Because I'll read from my shelves, but then I buy books and then it all balances out, so it stayed at 28%. I would like to see that needle move at some point. But March was not the month for that. Let's go through the books. So I have started playing a wrap-up game based on the game called MASH, which is a numbers game that I played in my childhood, where you could predict your future house, partner, number of kids, jobs, state you lived in, all that fun stuff. So I'm working with 4 qualities or characteristics or predictions. I'm going to go with the house, which from the bookish perspective, I analyzed like the setting that I'd want to be in. The romantic partner, meaning what romantic partner I would want to have. The job that I would want to have. And family, which in the bookish perspective is like what friend group would I want to have. I'm going to draw titles out of my little apothecary jar and play a little bit of MASH. All right. I had 8 books, so we'll be able to do exactly 2 draws. So let's do the first. Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emeze. Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Oh, goodness. The Drift by C.J. Tudor. Of course. Oh, no. Okay. House, family, boyfriend, girlfriend. This is difficult. I think I have it. Oh boy. All right. Let's start with Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. This was my DNF for the month. There's nothing particularly wrong with this book. This is a science fiction space novella. And it's just a me thing. Like, I'm not big on spacey sci-fi. I really like sci-fi set on Earth that deals with, like, cloning or AI or things like that. But once we get into space, I kind of lose interest, which is weird because I really like learning about space. Like, I'm a spacey girl. I like, literally and figuratively, like, I like learning about the stars and, like, going stargazing and all of that. But for some reason, when we get into, like, the fictional space opera settings, it doesn't track for me. I think it just goes over my head. I don't love it. So as a DNF, I don't rate my DNFs because I don't think that's fair. But for this book, I would choose the house or the setting because, like, yeah, let's check out this otherworldly setting. Why not? And I didn't know any of the story or the characters or anything like that enough to do any of the other options for MASH. So that is Binti. Next, Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. This is literary fiction, and it's about bank robbery gone wrong. Essentially, this bank robber is very clumsy about robbing the bank. They don't really want to rob the bank. They're doing it out of desperation. They end up accidentally taking a bunch of people hostage, and they end up becoming really good friends. And it's so fun. It's so much fun. The characters are amazing. If you're a character-driven reader, Frederick Bachman is for you. His character work is exquisite. He's so good at character work. Every single character is fully fleshed out and feels like a real person, even down to, like, the bank teller at the bank who's only in the book for one small scene. Even they have, like, a fullness about them, and, like, it's so good. It's so good. It's so freaking good. So this was definitely one of my 5-star reads. I think Frederick Bachman is quickly becoming one of my favorite contemporary literary writers. And for Anxious People, I chose Friend Group because the way that these characters end up being friends and then the way that their stories play out in the long term is just so heartwarming and wonderful, and I loved it. So this is like the family or the friend group I would choose for MASH. The Drift by C.J. Tudor. This was a read for Elizabeth's book club called The Midnight Society, where they focus on reading, like, darker stories, thrillers, horror, that kind of thing. And it's hosted by Elizabeth at Reading Wryly. So this was the March pick, and this is a thriller horror, and it's complicated. I'll link you to the vlog where I talk about this because I explain it in better detail in that. But basically, there's 3 different settings, and in each setting, these characters are trapped in this space. So it's all taking place on this snowy mountaintop. One setting is a group of students whose bus crashes and they're stuck in their bus and they can't get out of the bus. The other setting is at this place called The Retreat, where they're basically on lockdown in this cabin in the mountains. And then the other setting is on it's not a ski lift, but my brain wants to say air car, and it's not that. Oh, see, spacey. I'll put the word for it up here once I remember what it is. But they're stuck in that and they can't get out. They're stuck up in the sky in this, and so that's the basic setting, is these people have to survive being trapped in these spaces, and then all the stories kind of converge at the end. I gave this one, what did I give this one? I think it was a 4-star. It has to be, because that's pretty much the rating I gave all the books aside from Anxious People. 4 stars. And for this one, I chose Job because there's a scientist in here, and, like, if I have to do anything within this book, where I exist in this story, which I really would not want to, it would be I'd want to be one of the scientists. So, and then last we have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emeze. This is Akwaeke Emeze's, I think it's their first romance. I could be wrong, but it's a contemporary romance. And it's just a really messy story about a woman who falls in love with her boyfriend. I say boyfriend loosely because they weren't technically together, but like her boyfriend's father. And he is like a world-renowned chef, and that's what happens basically. It's just like a really messy story about two people falling in love when they really shouldn't. You know, like there's some taboo issues around them having a relationship, but it's the sweetest relationship ever. It's so sweet. And this book really deals with a lot of themes of like grief and loss and moving forward through grief and not losing yourself in a relationship, and it's good. I really liked it. I will say it hasn't stuck with me, you know, it being May when I'm filming this and reflecting. I don't even remember the characters' names. Like there are some concepts around discussions about art that stuck with me, like the female protagonist in this, she is an artist who paints in blood, and so there's some quotes around art that stuck with me, but I really haven't thought about it a whole lot since then, which is interesting. So I'm glad I gave it a 4 and not a 5, because I was debating. And for this one I picked Romantic Partner. I don't remember his name, but I loved the daddy in this, who she falls in love with. He's precious. He's everything. All right, now let's go ahead and pull the rest of them for the next round of MASH. When I Ran Away by Ilana Bannister. Open Season by C.J. Box. Spare by Prince Harry. And Killers of the Flower Moon by David Gran. I've got it. Okay. Whew, that took a second. Okay, let's start with Spare by Prince Harry. This is Prince Harry's memoir that's supposed to be so scandalous. And I think what shocked me most about this story was how not scandalous it was. Like, nothing in it surprised me. It was already just full of the same exact story that they told in their Oprah interview. So there was nothing, like, new. And everything else just kind of was very vanilla and touched on, like, his experiences in the military, and which, you know, that's not vanilla. Like that's very serious to like be in the military and go to war and like kill in battle and be shot at and have your life threatened. Like that's not vanilla. That's very serious, traumatizing stuff. I'm not trying to like belittle that at all. And he does spend quite a bit of time talking about that, and it's kind of interesting. And a lot of time talking about his childhood and growing up and some of the like PR debacles he's been through, like when he wore a Nazi uniform as a Halloween costume, and like talking about that, and like it was nice he owned his mistake. I mean, he owned up to it. But yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it because I'm an armchair royal historian, so I will eat that stuff up. But it also it wasn't as shocking as they were saying it was going to be. It didn't like, you know, have any like bombshells that it dropped or anything like that they hadn't already talked about. And one of the things that kind of made me pause was how closely accurate the stories were to the Oprah interview. Like, like in the book, once he meets Meghan, it's the Oprah interview just on print, basically. Like, even right down to some of the same language that was used in that interview. And it leaves me wondering, like, did Meghan write that part of the book? Because it sure sounds like it. Like, and they're really doubling down on that narrative. Like, doubling down on it. So, it'll be interesting to see how it folds into some of the other media and some of the other stories that they're putting out there in different forms. And I gave it 4 stars. Oh, for a MASH, I would do romantic partner because, I mean, who wouldn't want to marry into royalty except Meghan? So, okay, next, Open Season by CJ Box. This was my first sort of Western, and it's a mystery thriller set in, I want to say, Montana. And the main character, Joe, is a game warden. And so he spends his time like outside keeping track of hunters and wildlife and things like that. And he gets sort of caught up in this murder mystery that happens that ends up being quite a big political cover up for something. And it's good. It shocked me how much I enjoyed this. I didn't think I would like it all that much because I just have some preconceived notions about what a Western is, I guess. And I don't know that this is full-on Western or if it's more like mystery thriller with Western flavor, you know. But I really did enjoy this book. It gets into some interesting talk about like conservation and environmental protection, and like when we're putting a species on the endangered lists, who decides what gets put there, and are we playing God? And, you know, should it even be up to us to decide what species we preserve and what species we let die out? And like, there's really interesting thoughts I had never thought before. So very much liked it, and I will continue with this series. It's the Joe Pickett series, and I gave it 4 stars. For MASH, this would be career or job because being a game warden sounds pretty cool. You ride horses around nature, and I mean, that sounds fun to me. When I Ran Away by Ilana Bannister, this is literary fiction. It's sort of in the category of sad girl lit fic or Women versus the Void. And this is about a woman who loses a brother at 9/11, and on that same day meets the man she ends up marrying. She adopts a child, she has a child, and they move to London where her husband is originally from. And really what it's about, you know, aside from those basic plot points, it really touches on the imbalance of power in marriage and the unrealistic expectations that women bear the burden of everything in a marriage and a family. How women are expected to work, take care of the family, make all the appointments, keep the house clean, keep the house maintained and up to date, make appointments if something goes wrong. And then on top of that, take care of the freaking husband, like make him lunch for work the next day and help him keep his shit clean and do his laundry. And it's like, you don't have 2 kids, you have 3 kids because the husband ends up being just a grown-ass child. This gets me hot. Like, this topic gets me really angry, if you can't tell. I despise when this happens in relationships. It's actually why the majority of my relationships with men come to an end, is because I am not going to be a grown man's mama. And that is what this book touches on. It also touches a lot on postpartum depression and trauma during a childbirth and like traumatic childbirth and that kind of thing. And then for MASH, what I picked is friend group, because her husband isn't going to get her feeling better, that man child, but her friend group of other women in the same freaking positions see her through and help her basically stay alive. So definitely need a friend group like that. And then the last book for the month is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. This is a nonfiction true crime story about the birth of the FBI, basically. And it talks about the Osage Indians and how they were one by one sort of being murdered, so that people could inherit their money, because the Osage were on an oil field and they got to keep the oil field when they formed their settlement with the U.S. government. And so they were very wealthy and people started killing them for their money. And so this true crime book is about that and how through solving these crimes, the FBI was founded. And it's very good. It's very well done. It is nonfiction that sort of reads like fiction. It's very easy to read and digest. I really liked learning about this story, and the Osage is a group of indigenous people I knew nothing about, so that was good to learn about them. And I gave it 4 stars, and so for this, I picked setting because I think it'd be fun to kind of go back in time and see what, again, the Wild West. I had, I guess, a Western theme in March reading, but to see what like that Wild West was like in the early, it would have been early 20th, late 19th century in the United States. Okay. Pippi says hello. Pippi. 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 You want to say hi to our friends? Say hi, Pip Pip. Say hi. Say hi to our booktube friends. Isn't she getting big? Baby. She's not kidding no more. Alright, so that is my March wrap-up. Have you read any of these books? Let me know down below if you have. Let me know what your favorite book from March was. If you just want to let me know that you're here, go ahead and leave me a crown emoji for spare. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye!